Well, Cowboys Nation, we all knew this day would come. The Dallas Cowboys would indeed lose a football game after a 5-game winning streak. Today was that day, and it was not the Dallas Cowboys day. 31-10, the final score up in Orchard Park, New York, as the Buffalo Bills dominate the Dallas Cowboys and put down probably the most embarrassing loss of the season. And maybe you could throw it up there with Week 5 against San Francisco. But they finish off the Dallas Cowboys in a big way. Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans here to break it down for you. Running defense, run game. I mean, it was just the ground and pound all the way through from Buffalo that led the way, and Dallas didn't have an answer.
Yeah, to me, this game boiled down to one thing, and it was the trenches, on both sides, offensively and defensively. I feel like Buffalo had their way in the trenches. Defensively, we looked at this defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys, and we knew they can get after the quarterback. We knew that. But can they stop the run? Throughout this season, they've been up and down when it comes to the rushing defense, and today they got kind of exposed. I mean, 266 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. That's, to me, is inexcusable. And the offensive line for the Buffalo Bills, they put it on them. They put it on them. James Cook was out there being able to hit the outside, the inside. He was receiving out of the backfield. He did whatever he wanted out there. And they kept Josh Allen contained for the most part, but he didn't have to do much. When you're going out there rushing for 266 yards, the quarterback position becomes extremely easy. Either you hand it off or you got play action. And they were able to do both things out there. To me, missing Hankins and missing your middle field safety, Malik Hooker, was huge, because the tackling out there was some of the worst tackling I've seen in a very long time. A lot of missed tackles led to a lot of big-time explosive plays, and you cannot do that as a defense and expect to win the ball game.
If there was ever a question in regards to whether or not you missed Jonathan Hankins, or if you would miss him if he had any extended period of time, this game answers your questions. If there's any questions regarding whether or not you should bring in somebody until Jonathan Hankins gets healthy, just as a backup in case he gets hurt again, this game answers your questions. 64 plays offensively for the Buffalo Bills, 49 rushes. 64 plays, 49 rushes for 266 yards, just like Barry talked about. It didn't matter who had the ball. Cook just happened to be the one who got the ball for 25 times, 179 yards.
Back to the future. This is what we normally see when we play against teams that are determined to run the ball. In the first half, 26 rushes, 146 yards, 5.6 average, 2 TDs, a long of 20, 18 minutes off the clock. James by himself, that is Cooks, 15 carries, 104 yards, 6.9. That was the beating. That took the sting off our defense in the second half. No one was left fresh.
Yeah, all those numbers you just wrote off that was the first half only.
Yes.
And then they kept that running game going into the second half. James Cook finishes with 25 carries, 179 yards. He had both a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Could have had a second receiving touchdown, too. Bobbled it at the line of scrimmage.
Oh, and by the way, he had 42 of the 94 yards receiving as well.
Oh, so nearly half that. Yeah, that didn't work out. I think before the game, if you look at it, we'll talk about this defense here. If you would have told me Josh Allen finishes 7 of 15 throwing the football for 94 yards and a touchdown,
victory.
You ask me, I return to ask the question and say, how much did the Cowboys win by?
Exactly.
That's phenomenal.
Correct.
Does that show how much of a hole there is on that defense in terms of stopping the run?
It's a huge hole, and I understand the weather was not the greatest of conditions when you talk about a football game.
It wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been.
It wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. I mean, you see out there, they were able to open up lanes on the inside and outside, and that to me is what's concerning, because it was just the offensive line for the Buffalo Bills had their way, whatever they wanted to do. There was no edge being set out there. If they wanted to run up the gut, the running back wasn't getting touched until the second or third level. And we talked about this a few weeks ago with this second-level linebacking core with Clark and with Marquise Bell. I had my concerns figuring that those two guys might have been a little bit small in that second level when you go against physical teams, when you go against winning teams, and it showed its face here today. I mean, like I said, running backs weren't getting touched for 5 to 6 yards down the field. Tackling was horrendous. They've got to do a better job if they want to go further in this thing.
But it wasn't just the defense.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the defense.
It wasn't.
The trenches were controlled by the Buffalo Bills. Period, point blank. Dak Prescott didn't have time to sit back and throw the ball comfortably. There was always somebody in the backfield. He was running for his life. He had errant throws because of the pressure that was on him as well. So when we talk about the defensive line presence, we have to talk about it for the Buffalo Bills as well. Those guys had their way against the Dallas Cowboys offense. The trenches all day today were owned by the home team.
No rhythm, offensively or defensively. I mean, at 35 plus minutes of possession for the Bills. When you go on the road as a football team and you're trying to show who you are, you have to at least try to control time of possession, because you're going to have some ups and downs in that game that you're going to have to come through. But if you have the ball in your hands, you always have a chance to come back. You can control time of possession. Our special teams was non-existent, and that's what happened when your defense doesn't play well.
Guys, I do have some good news, though. The Buffalo Bills are not going to run anymore against the Dallas Cowboys. This game is over. It is done. The clock has hit 0. And now you have a chance with 3 games left to leave your mark on the 2023 regular season.
But you have to address this,
That's
right? You have to address this. You
part
have
of
to
it.
go get somebody. There's a question going into this game whether or not you needed to get somebody in.
Who
and
do you
start
go
practicing.
get?
I don't care. And Ndamukong Suh, get him off the bench, get him off the couch, get him out the refrigerator. Figure out somebody that can come in here and get on your practice squad and start seeing if they can at least make some contributions. I'm not saying that there's guys at home that are going to come in immediately and start balling out, but at least get them into the building, start getting their legs underneath them and see, can you have an impact on us? Because as we start working towards the playoffs, now that we know that we're in the playoffs, regardless of what that slotting is going to be, you have post-game play that's coming up. You need to know if something happens to Jonathan Hankins, this won't be the result of it.
Yeah, you got to also look at these penalties. I mean, once again, they reared their ugly heads.
3 personal fouls in the first half that all led to touchdown drives.
Exactly, and that's going to extend drives out there. 5 penalties for 48 yards out there. Extending drives, like you just said. You cannot give a good team another opportunity, and that's exactly what they gave Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and they were able to compound that.
As we were watching this game, we kept hearing almost. And when I played, Jimmy Johnson said almost to get you touchdowns versus you. I almost got a sack, quarterback escape, first down. I almost got a sack, quarterback escape, touchdown. That's all it's going to be. You can't almost on good teams. You got to make the plays when they were there. And we had few today, and the few that we had, we did not make.
Yeah. Cowboys fall to 10-4. The Bills improve to 8-6. Cowboys, the next 3 weeks, they've got some big ones coming too. They've got the Dolphins next week, also at 10-4. Then it's followed by the Lions. Then it's followed by the Washington Commanders. We leave you here with the final stats of this one. The Cowboys fall on the road, 31-10, the final score. 351 total yards from Buffalo, 266 on the ground, as they had a bludgeoning of ground game against the Dallas Cowboys. We have more post-game reaction, including from inside the locker room up in Buffalo after the 31-10 loss. Cowboys game night, Cowboys OT coming your way later in the night. That does it for the First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper.